The galaxy was dying. Stars dimmed one by one, their light swallowed by endless black. Fleets drifted through space with no power, no purpose. Planets that once shone with life now floated as ruins, silent and cold. For centuries, an unstoppable force called the Eclipsed Swarm had devoured everything in its path. It was not an army, not even a species, it was something worse. It moved like a storm of shadows, consuming ships, planets, even entire suns. Nothing could stop it. The great empires, the Valor Dominion, the Sarin Alliance, the Core Federation, had all fallen. Each one fought until the last ship vanished in fire. The survivors scattered, hiding in dark corners of the galaxy, hoping the swarm would pass them by. But it never stopped. It never rested. Now only a few broken fleets remained. Among them, the Varan Council, once proud leaders of peace and knowledge. They had ruled the Galactic Council for thousands of years. Now they sat in silence aboard their last station, orbiting a dying red star. The council chamber was dim. Holoscreens flickered weakly as smoke curled from broken lights. The air smelled of fear and metal. Alarin, the Varan leader, stood before the others. His eyes, once filled with wisdom, now held only sorrow. "We have lost 70% of the remaining colonies," he said quietly. "The swarm has entered the Raylan sector. There is nowhere left to run." The other council members stared at him, speechless. Some whispered prayers. Others simply closed their eyes, waiting for the end. For centuries, they had believed themselves untouchable, advanced, intelligent, eternal. But now the end of everything stared them in the face. Alarin turned to the communication officer, a trembling young alien with pale blue skin. "Send a signal," he said. "A wideband message across all known frequencies." The officer hesitated. "A signal to whom, counselor?" "There's no one left." Alarin's voice was steady but filled with pain. "Then let it be our last message to the stars." He paused, and for a long moment the room was silent except for the hum of failing power. Then he spoke the words that would echo through the void. "Is anyone still out there?" The message was sent, and silence followed. Hours passed, then days. The dying star outside the station pulsed weakly as if mocking their hope. One by one, council members drifted away, returning to their quarters to await the end. Only Alarin stayed behind. Watching the stars fade, he thought of the ancient records, stories of a small, violent world on the edge of the galaxy, a world that the council had once exiled from galactic society for being too dangerous, too unpredictable. Earth. But that was thousands of years ago. Humanity was gone. Their homeworld was abandoned and silent. Their name was nothing more than a forgotten warning. Then it happened. The comm screens flickered. A weak signal appeared on the edge of detection, static at first, then a faint rhythm like a heartbeat. The technician gasped and rushed to Alarin's side. "Sir, we're picking up something. It's coming from the outer rim." Alarin leaned forward. "Put it through." The static grew louder, then cleared. A voice emerged, deep, calm, and unmistakably alive. It spoke only 3 words. "We heard you." The entire room froze. The comm officer stared at the screen, her hands shaking. That's not possible. It's human." Alarin's heart pounded. "Run a trace now." The signal repeated once, faint but firm. "We heard you." The technician's voice cracked as he read the data. "Origin, unknown. It's coming from the Sol system." The chamber erupted into disbelief. "That's impossible," shouted one council member. "The Sol system was consumed centuries ago." Alarin said nothing. He simply stared at the glowing coordinates on the screen. Earth? Could it be? Could humanity have survived the dark? As the realization spread, the council chamber filled with whispers. Fear, hope, confusion. No one had spoken the word human aloud in generations. "Play it again," Alarin said. The message echoed once more through the room, calm, steady, human. "We heard you." The words hit like a shockwave. If it was true, if humans were still alive, then maybe the galaxy wasn't finished yet. Maybe there was still something left worth fighting for. But Alarin also remembered what the old records said. Humans were dangerous. Humans didn't just survive, they changed everything around them. And now, after centuries of silence, they had spoken again. Alarin turned toward the dying star outside the window. For the first time in years, a flicker of light returned to his eyes. "Prepare a fleet," he said quietly. "If humanity has returned, the galaxy may not be dead yet." But deep in his mind, a single question haunted him. Was this the return of salvation, or the beginning of the unexpected war? The council room was silent. Only the hum of dying engines filled the air as the message replayed again and again. We heard you. Those 3 words had shaken every soul aboard the Varan station. For generations, humanity had been nothing more than a myth, a cautionary tale whispered in the archives. Now their voice had returned. Ellerin stood motionless before the central display. The signal data floated in front of him. Coordinates, transmission strength, frequency pattern. Everything pointed to one place. Sol System, the home of Earth. He looked around at the other council members. Their faces showed the same disbelief he felt. They can't be alive, whispered Vora, the science chief. Earth was wiped out during the Purge Wars. It's impossible. Ilarin's tone was calm but firm. And yet that's their voice. He turned to the operations officer. Prepare a scout fleet. We're going to Sol. A murmur of fear spread across the room. Counselor, that region is uncharted now, said one commander nervously. No one has entered Sol space for centuries. The radiation storms alone, Ellerin raised a hand. If the humans survived, they may hold the key to fighting the swarm. We have no choice. 3 days later, the Varan flagship Solace left the dying star and jumped into the void. Alongside it flew a dozen smaller ships, what remained of the once mighty council fleet. Their engines burned dim, their hulls scarred by endless war. The journey to Sol was long and silent. They passed through the wreckage of old battlefields, floating debris, shattered colonies, and drifting corpses of ancient ships. Each one a memory of a galaxy that had once been alive. Ellerin stood on the bridge, watching as they entered a dense cloud of cosmic dust. This is the border, said the navigator. Sol system ahead. Open sensors, Ellerin ordered. At first the screen showed nothing but static. Then slowly a shape appeared. An entire field of structures orbiting a blue-white planet. Gasps filled the bridge. Is that Earth? One officer whispered. No, said Ellerin softly. It's what Earth has become. Before them hung a sight no one could have imagined. The planet was surrounded by a vast ring, an artificial shell that shimmered with light. Hundreds of towers pierced the atmosphere, connecting to enormous orbital platforms, and beyond them thousands of ships. Dark, silent, perfectly aligned. It was not the Earth they remembered. It was something else. Something powerful. Something waiting. Unidentified fleet, a voice suddenly echoed across the comms. Every alien on the bridge froze. The voice was calm, deep, and unmistakably human. This is Terran Command. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourself immediately. The comm officer stammered. This is the Varan Council ship Solace. We received your signal. We seek contact with humanity. A short silence followed. Then the human voice replied, Signal confirmed. You are cleared for approach. Do not deviate from the flight path. As the alien fleet followed the coordinates, dozens of human ships moved around them in perfect formation, sleek, black vessels with glowing red markings. Their movements were so precise it felt like watching a machine with a heartbeat. One alien whispered, They're not the same humans we knew. Ellerin said nothing. His eyes were locked on the planet below. Minutes later, they entered Earth's orbit. The view was breathtaking and terrifying. The entire surface glittered with lines of light. Massive cities covered every continent, powered by rivers of glowing energy. Above them floated structures larger than moons. Are they rebuilding the planet? Vora asked. Ellerin shook his head. No, they've transformed it. A deep tone filled the comms again. This is Admiral Rains of the Terran Defense Command. Welcome to Sol. A holographic projection appeared on the bridge, a tall human in a black uniform with silver insignia. His eyes were sharp, his expression unreadable. Ellerin stepped forward, bowing slightly. Admiral Rains, I am Counselor Ellerin of the Varan. We believed humanity was lost. Yet here you stand. Rains studied him silently for a moment, then spoke. Humanity was never lost, Counselor. We simply stopped talking. Ellerin frowned. Why, the galaxy needed you. The swarm, Rains interrupted. We watched. We listened. And we waited. Waited for what? For this moment. Without warning, a projection appeared beside him, a map of the galaxy. It showed the path of the eclipsed swarm spreading across every system. But then another network of red lines appeared, moving toward it from multiple directions. These are Terran fleets, Rains explained. We've been tracking the swarm for decades. We know what it is. We know how it thinks. And now we know how to stop it. Ellerin stared at the map, astonished. You mean humanity has been fighting them? Rains's expression softened slightly. Fighting? No, studying, preparing. Every system that fell, we learned from it. Every battle lost, we adapted. And now we're ready. The room went silent. Ellerin could hardly breathe. You're saying you can defeat them? Rains leaned closer. We don't intend to defeat them, Kui. The Varan fleet drifted above the fortress world once called Earth. Below them, oceans glowed with power grids, and the sky shimmered with the constant movement of war machines. For the first time in centuries, Ellerin felt something he couldn't name. Hope mixed with fear. Humanity had returned. But they were not the same. The old records described humans as reckless, emotional, and wild. But these humans moved with cold precision. Their ships were silent, their technology beyond understanding, and their soldiers spoke little. Even their eyes, those who stood in the holographic meetings, carried something heavy. Like they had seen too much. Admiral Rains had summoned the alien delegates to observe the upcoming operation. He called it Operation Dawnfire. Your message reached us at the right time, Rains said in his deep voice. The swarm has reached the Orion Verge. If they're not stopped there, the next target will be this system. Ellerin studied the map projected before them, a vast cluster of systems already covered in black, showing where the eclipsed swarm had consumed everything. He pointed to the blinking light at the edge of the map. That's the Verge? Yes, Rains replied. It's where we make our stand. The other council members exchanged nervous glances. You can't stop them, one said. No fleet has ever survived contact with the swarm. Rains's lips curved slightly. That's because no one ever fought them like humans do. Hours later, the Terran fleet began to move. From the orbital rings, massive hangar doors opened, releasing hundreds, no thousands of ships. Every vessel was black as night, marked with faint red lines that pulsed like veins of fire. The alien officers aboard the Solace watched in silence. Some whispered in disbelief. Others trembled. They're forming a line, said one Varan pilot softly. A perfect line. Indeed, the human armada stretched across the stars in perfect symmetry. Each dreadnought spaced exactly the same distance apart, each fighter moving like part of one living organism. Ellerin turned to Rains's hologram on the bridge. What are you planning, Admiral? Rains looked calm, almost too calm. Something the swarm has never seen before. The jump to the Orion Verge lasted less than a heartbeat. One moment stars filled the sky. The next, darkness. The Verge was silent, a graveyard of broken worlds and shattered moons. In the distance, a massive black cloud pulsed and moved, devouring everything it touched. The eclipsed swarm. Billions of life forms merged into one endless wave of hunger. Sensors screamed as the swarm detected them. Tens of thousands of bioships emerged from the cloud, fleshy, burning, alive. Contact in 30 seconds, said the Terran AI calmly. Ellerin watched, frozen. How many are there? Rains replied coldly. Enough to bury us all. Then his tone changed. Let's see if they can bury fire. The Terran flagship Aegis Prime moved forward, its hull glowing with heat. Around it, dreadnoughts aligned into attack formation. Rains's voice echoed through every human ship. Target their lead clusters. All batteries, prepare for ignition. The swarm advanced like a living wall, its roar echoing through space itself. And then, the humans fired. The void lit up with red and white light. Energy beams the size of cities cut through the swarm like blades through water. Explosions tore through the black clouds. Thousands of bioships disintegrated instantly. The aliens aboard the Solace gasped. Their scanners went wild. The power output of human weapons was beyond anything they had ever seen. How are they doing this? One asked. Rains answered simply. We rebuilt the laws of war, but the swarm didn't stop. For every creature destroyed, 10 more appeared. The sky filled with writhing forms, spiked tendrils, massive wings, living weapons made of bone and metal. They struck back. Acidic fire rained on human ships. Entire clusters vanished under bioplasma waves. The Terran line held, but the edges began to buckle. Sector 4 losing formation. Shouted a human officer. Hold position, Rains barked. Deploy the Aegis array. At his command, a grid of satellites around the battlefield activated. Thin beams of golden light linked between them, forming a web across the stars. Energy field rising, said the AI. Plasma containment ready. Then, the light burst outward. A massive wave of heat and radiation engulfed the front line of the swarm. The creatures screamed, millions of them, then fell, silent. The aliens on the Solace stared in disbelief as half of the swarm's vanguard turned to ash, Ilaren whispered. They built a weapon that uses the sun itself. Rains didn't look away. We built it because we had to. Hours passed. The battle raged on. The swarm kept coming, endless, merciless. But humanity didn't retreat. When one ship fell, another moved to fill its place. When the enemy adapted, humans adapted faster. Every maneuver, every counterattack, it was like watching a dance of death. And then, something unexpected happened. The swarm began to break formation. It was retreating. Impossible, said one Varan officer. They never retreat. Rains smiled faintly. Now they do. He turned to his second-in-command. Signal all fleets. Pursue to minimum safe range. Then fire the pulse. The human fleet adjusted instantly, moving as one. A red glow began to form beneath their ships, a sphere of energy building, humming, burning brighter with each passing second. Ilaren's sensors screamed with power warnings. Admiral, what are you doing? Rains's eyes were cold. Ending the battle. A final command echoed through every human ship. Pulse now. The sphere exploded into a massive wave of white light. It wasn't a weapon of destruction. It was something else. The wave passed through every ship, every piece of debris, every swarm creature. When it was over, the stars looked brighter. The swarm was gone, not destroyed, erased. Silence filled the comm channels. Then slowly cheers erupted from the human fleet. Ilaren stood speechless, staring at the aftermath. He had just witnessed something that no alien civilization could even dream of. Humanity had faced extinction and turned it into victory. Later, when the battle logs were shared, the truth became clear. The weapon wasn't a bomb or beam. It was a pulse of light coated with quantum resonance. It disrupted the swarm's hive-mind connection, collapsing it from within. A weapon not of brute force but of understanding. Humans had studied the enemy until they learned to unmake it. As the fleets returned to Sol, Rains stood alone in his command room. He looked at the stars, his face calm but weary. The war was far from over. The swarm would return stronger, evolved. But now the galaxy had seen what humans could do, and deep down Ilaren realized something terrifying. If humanity could erase an enemy like the swarm with a single command, what would happen if one day they turned that power on the galaxy itself? The humans had whispered hope. But behind that whisper was thunder. Would you like me to con? The galaxy trembled. For the first time in centuries, the eclipsed swarm stopped moving. The massive black clouds of their ships, once spreading across entire sectors, paused, waiting. No one understood why. The alien council watched the holoscreens in disbelief. Billions of eyes stared as the swarm fleets hung in space like frozen shadows. Then, through the static, another message came. It was human again. A voice, strong, calm, and cold. This is Earth Command. Stand by. Those 3 words sent shockwaves across the stars. Earth Command? That name hadn't been spoken in over 1,000 years. Every archive, every record said Earth was gone, burned in the First Galactic War. But if that voice was real, if Earth still lived, then humanity had returned. The Varan leader, Ilaren, whispered, "They were supposed to be extinct." His second-in-command replied softly, "Then what are we hearing?" The screen flickered, showing images one by one. Massive ships emerging from void space, ships larger than any ever built. Their hulls glowed faintly with shifting blue light. Each carried symbols no alien could read, but one word repeated across them all. Terra. The human fleet had returned. But these weren't the same humans the galaxy once knew. These ships didn't move like machines, they moved like living things, bending light, bending gravity. The Alien Council's analysts stuttered in fear. They're using technology we can't detect. We can't even scan their power cores. Ilaren stared, his throat dry. They disappeared for centuries. and came back with this? As the council argued in panic, a new broadcast filled every channel across the galaxy. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. A woman's voice, calm, commanding. This is Admiral Reyes of the Terran Vanguard. To all surviving civilizations, your signal was received. You are not alone anymore. Hope returned to faces that had forgotten what it looked like. Some cried, others knelt. Entire worlds stopped fighting for survival and turned toward that voice. But hope came with questions. How could humanity survive when the rest of the galaxy had fallen? Where had they been all these centuries? Then came the terrifying answer. From deep space, sensors detected something impossible, an artificial sun igniting in the darkness. It wasn't natural. It was a weapon, a human creation. The eclipsed swarm sent half their fleet to intercept, but as their ships approached, the light grew brighter, so bright it erased them. Millions of swarm vessels were vaporized in an instant. Silence followed. The galaxy had just witnessed the destruction of a force once believed unstoppable. Ilaran turned to the council. They didn't just come back to help us. They came back to end this. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy began to hope again. But in the dark heart of the swarm, something moved. A deeper, older intelligence. The humans had gotten its attention. And as the galaxy's silence didn't last long. When humanity's light burned through half the swarm's armada, every star system trembled. The aliens watched through broken sensors as the eclipsed swarm, creatures that had ended thousands of civilizations, were erased in seconds. It was unbelievable. The galaxy had always believed the swarm was eternal, unstoppable, and endless. But now, it had bleeding edges. For a brief moment, hope filled the broken worlds. Some species came out of hiding. Others began sending messages to Earth Command, begging to join whatever humanity was planning. Yet, in the darkness beyond the destroyed sectors, something began to stir. The swarm was not mindless. It had a leader. They called it the Prime Convergence, a single, ancient intelligence that connected every creature, every ship, every shadow of the swarm. When half of its children died in that burst of human light, it woke fully for the first time in millennia, and it was furious. Massive black storms formed at the edge of the galaxy. Whole systems vanished as the swarm reformed, combining into something far worse than before. Their ships reshaped themselves into a single vast structure, a moving fortress the size of a moon. The alien council watched in horror as the readings came in. It's heading straight for the Terran fleet. Ilaran, now one of the last remaining council leaders, whispered, "They're coming for revenge." Far away, aboard the human flagship TSV Sol's Fury, Admiral Reyes stood silent, watching the data streams. Her expression didn't change when she saw the swarm converging. She only said 3 words. "Then let them come." Behind her, the bridge was alive with controlled energy. Human officers moved quickly, their faces calm. They were used to fear. It was part of who they were. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Park, "the enemy mass is beyond prediction. We've never faced anything like this." Reyes gave a faint smile. "Neither have they." She turned to the tactical display, a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Glowing red dots marked the enemy's movement. Blue ones marked humanity's fleet, but suddenly green lights began to appear, signals from alien survivors. Ilaran's voice came through the comm. "Terran fleet, this is the Varen remnant. We wish to fight beside you." Reyes paused, then nodded. "Then stand with us. This isn't just Earth's war anymore. It's everyone's." The swarm arrived like a living storm. A wave of darkness swept through the stars, eating light itself. Swarm vessels moved like insects, but struck like lightning. Energy blasts covered entire planets. The first battle began in the ruins of the Hadron system. Human ships met them head-on. The Terran fleet didn't scatter or run. They advanced. Their weapons were silent beams of compressed plasma, guided by strange gravitational pulses. Where human fire touched, swarm ships disintegrated into dust. But for every ship destroyed, more came. The aliens watching from distant worlds couldn't believe it. The swarm had been hit with everything known to science before and survived. But this was different. Human weapons adapted. Every time a swarm creature changed its armor or form, human AI systems rewrote the next strike to pierce it. They learned during battle. For hours the sky burned. Then, without warning, a massive shadow appeared behind the swarm lines. The prime convergence itself had arrived, a monstrous entity that defied all logic. Half machine, half living nightmare, it pulsed with dark energy that made sensors scream. It opened a channel. A voice, cold and ancient, echoed in every mind across space. "Humanity, you should have stayed dead," Reyes replied, her tone sharp as steel. "We don't die. We endure," the prime laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Then you will endure extinction." A beam of black energy erupted from the creature's core, striking Sol's Fury directly. The ship's shields flared, then shattered. Entire decks burned. Reyes was thrown to the floor, alarms screaming. "Status. Shields gone. Hull breaches across sections C through F." But she stood. "Reroute power from the reactors. We're not retreating." Through the smoke and chaos, humanity refused to yield. Nearby, the Varan ships, smaller, weaker, formed a protective wall around the damaged Terran flagship. They didn't know if it would make a difference, but they remembered what the humans had said. "You are not alone anymore." So they fought. The battle became a blur of light and shadow. The swarm howled, the humans countered, and across the galaxy, every surviving race watched in silence. At the height of the chaos, Admiral Reyes gave one final command: "Activate the Whisper Protocol." Her crew hesitated. "That command hadn't been spoken in 1,000 years, Admiral. That could destroy half the system." She looked at the hollow of the prime convergence still moving closer. "Then let's hope it's enough." Deep beneath Earth's surface, something ancient began to stir. Massive reactors that hadn't been used in centuries powered up. Light spread across the planet's crust. Then, without warning, a pulse of white energy shot into the void, fast, silent, and invisible. The humans had unleashed something the galaxy had never seen. As the pulse reached the battlefield, it wrapped around human ships, bending time and gravity. The swarm sensors failed. Their weapons stopped working. And for the first time in their existence, they panicked. The light flared, the battlefield went white, and when it cleared, the swarm's fortress was gone. The galaxy went silent once more. But deep in the dark, fragments of the swarm still moved. Pieces of their leader still whispered through space. They weren't gone, not yet. And humanity knew this was only the beginning, because something inside that last signal from the prime sounded like fear. The battlefield was silent. Where moments ago there had been fire and chaos, now only drifting debris remained. The stars shimmered faintly through the dust, painting a strange peace over the ruins. No one moved. No one spoke. The Whisper Protocol had ended the war, at least for now. But it had also taken something with it. The human flagship Sol's Fury floated half-broken, its hull cracked open, engines silent. Fires burned along its surface and emergency lights blinked weakly. Inside, the crew moved through smoke and debris, searching for survivors. Admiral Reyes stood near the shattered bridge window, looking out at the fading light where the swarm had once been. Her uniform was torn, her face streaked with blood and ash, but her eyes were calm. "Status," she said quietly. Lieutenant Park's voice trembled. "We lost 70% of the fleet. Most of our allies' ships are gone. But the swarm fortress, it's gone too, completely." Reyes nodded slowly. Then it worked. She didn't smile. There was no celebration, only silence. Across the galaxy the news spread. From the broken colonies of the Varan to the deep tunnels of the Yalari, every surviving species watched the human transmission. The video feed was grainy, filled with static. But one thing was clear. Humanity had returned and saved them all. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy dared to breathe. Elerin, the Varan leader, stood in the shadow of a half-destroyed council hall, listening to the faint signal from Sol's Fury. "They did it," he whispered. "The humans actually did it." Beside him, a younger alien asked, "Will they help us rebuild?" Elerin looked at the stars, his eyes reflecting the burning remains of war. "They already have," he said softly. "They gave us back hope." But not everything was over. Far from the main battle, on the edge of a dead system, a small fragment of the swarm still lived. It pulsed faintly, black, wounded, but alive. Inside that dark shell, a voice whispered. It was the prime convergence. "They learned," it said weakly. "They remembered." Then a moment later it added, "We will learn too." And the fragment began to move again, deeper into the void. Back aboard Saul's Fury, Reyes stood in the command center, watching engineers rebuild what was left of the ship. The survivors moved quietly, exhausted but alive. Every now and then, someone would stop and look out the window, as if not believing what they saw. A galaxy free of the swarm. Dr. Amara, the ship's chief scientist, approached. Admiral, the energy readings from the Whisper protocol are still climbing. Whatever we unleashed, it's not done. Reyes turned. Explain. It wasn't just a weapon, Amara said softly. It was something older, a defense system from the first era. It reacted to us, to human DNA, our voice, our command codes. It's spreading across space, cleaning whatever's left of the swarm, but it's also adapting, Reyes frowned. Adapting? Yes, Amara said. It's rewriting itself, learning like it's waiting for something. Outside, the stars began to shimmer. Light waves bent unnaturally, forming strange patterns in the emptiness. The surviving ship started receiving signals, small rhythmic pulses from the light itself. What is that? Park asked. Reyes looked at the repeating pattern. It wasn't random. It was Morse code, Old Earth language. It said only one phrase. We are not done. The bridge went quiet. Alarin's voice came through the comm, shaken. Admiral, that message, it's coming from the same coordinates where the swarm fortress vanished. Reyes stood still. Her eyes narrowed. Patch it through. The screen flickered. For a second, only static filled it. Then through the interference, a faint image appeared, a vast empty void glowing faintly gold. And then, a shape. It wasn't swarm, it wasn't human. It was something else, taller, older, and surrounded by symbols that matched the oldest Earth data archives. Amara whispered, That's not possible. Those are precursor markings, older than any known civilization, the figure spoke. Its voice was neither human nor alien, but something beyond both. The Whisper was our gift, it said calmly. You used it well. But this galaxy is not healed yet. Reyes took a